It's time to begin our Bible study. Begin with the singing of number 544. 544, Redeemed. 544. Redeemed, how I love to proclaim it, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed through his infinite mercy, his child and forever I am. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed, redeemed, his child and forever I am. Redeemed and so happy in Jesus, no language of rapture can tell. I know that the light of his presence with me doth continually dwell. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed, redeemed, his child and forever I am. I know I shall see in his beauty the King in whose law I delight, who lovingly guardeth my footsteps and giveth me songs in the night. Redeemed, redeemed, redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, redeemed, redeemed, his child and forever I am. Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for another beautiful Lord's Day. Thank you for the cool air. Thank you for all the many, many physical blessings of life that you grant unto us each day. Just taking a breath and feet hitting the floor. So thankful for all you do for us. We're grateful now for this opportunity, this privilege we have to come this morning and gather with those of like faith and open your word and study your word and hear reports of the work going on outside of our community, and we're thankful that we're able to be a part of that in a small way. Pray it shall be with those of our number that have recently lost loved ones. Think of Kathy Nestor and B. Pratt, Smith family, Miss Eve. Just had a lot of loss of life going on lately, and we know that is the plan, and we know as Christians that's not the end. We don't have to mourn the way that others do, and we know that we'll miss them terribly, but we know that if we live our life the way that we have been commanded to do, that we will once again be joined together with them. Pray now that you'll be with us through this Bible study, be with the speakers of the hour. Ask that you forgive us those sins we've asked forgiveness of. Strengthen us in those things that are upright and good. Defeat us in those things that are contrary to your will. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
This morning we have visiting with us Brother Dub Hill. He is our missionary to Russia that we support. We're glad for his work, and I'm sure that there's a lot of interesting information he has of the things going currently in the area of Russia. And he said that he's known Brother Kenny French for 60 years. Is that right? So that relationship with them goes a long way back. The support we've given him goes a long way back. But we'll leave the rest of the Bible class to Mr. Dub Hill.
It is good to be back again. It's been 3 years in February since we visited with you last. COVID kind of took its toll on all of us, and including travel, and things are just now beginning to get back to resemble something of normal. I notice you're using the individual communion cups and bread. That's pretty widespread. We've only visited about 3 congregations of the 17 that support us that still use the old system where they pass the trays. And of course that's up to each individual congregation to determine which is best for them. But either way, we come together and we have communion with each other and with the Lord, certainly. It's like I said, it's been 3 years. A lot has happened in Russia in 3 years, and I hope to cover a little bit of that with you this morning. I'm kind of doing this a little bit different than past presentations. I'd really like to spend the first few minutes with facts about what's going on in Russia today and give you a few minutes to ask questions, because we always seem to wind up at the end with no time left, and if anybody's got a question, then I'm sorry, we have to move on. But this morning, let's just take some time, and we'll see how that works out. So if you've got questions, we'll raise your hand. I noticed that you've got 7 missionaries that you support. I want you to know how much that I and my wife Shirley appreciate your cards. I really would like to know how many of you have signed a card to a missionary in the past year. Just hold your hand up. If you've signed those cards, we thoroughly appreciate it very, very much. You just don't know how much that encourages, not us, but the other 6 missionaries that you do support. I'm thankful that you work with the children's home. You have support there. You've got a missionary where, South Dakota? Yeah, and that you fully support. And it's wonderful that you're so involved. And not many congregations of your size have that many supporting, that you're supporting. And it's just very encouraging to us. We thank you for what you do for us. You're very special. You've always welcomed us, and we love you for that. Am I being heard? Everybody okay with this? With what?
Use the mouse.
Oh, use the mouse? That's fine. Okay.
That one away from me.
All right.
Just click anywhere.
Okay, anywhere.
Here.
How about that? Go into all the world. That's the command. Matthew 28, 19 and 20, and then Mark 16, 15 and 16. We're to go, we're to make disciples, we're to baptize. And one of the most fascinating things to me is in Galatians chapter 4, verse 4, Paul says that the gospel had been preached to every creature under heaven. That is just absolutely hard for me to believe. I went back and did a little research on how many people were in the world at that time. And I started with the fact that the Roman Empire population was about 127 million people in Bible times. So we start using these formulas that anybody in the insurance business would understand, the actuaries, and you start using those formulas, and you can come up with a projection about any number of things. And I came to the conclusion, and this is no scientific whatever, you could change one number and it would, it'd explode in a different direction. But the figure I came up with was 195 million people in the world at the time that Paul and the others were preaching the gospel. And it just shows how effective it is when we teach one and then we teach another and they teach some, and it just spreads. And that's what happened. It multiplied. If you study the book of Acts, that's what you find. But that's what we were told to do, and you're very effective in what you do in your support. Let's see. This this is the section I was talking about what's going on in Russia. Obviously, you keep up with a lot of it, I'm sure, via news. I do too. I have certainly some contacts in Russia that let me know what they're doing and how they're doing. But the borders will close. If you've seen the news today, a lot of the men and their families are leaving. Some of them are coming back, but they're really concerned, especially those under 30. 30 is they've just increased the age that they can draft men up to 30, from 25 to 30. And so those are the men that are, and their families, of course, they're all young. Those are the ones that are concerned about it, and they will leave, depending, I'm sure, on how their wives feel. And we can certainly understand that as men who are responsible for families. The women are very concerned that they might send their husbands off to war and they might not come back. So they're leaving as a result of that. All U.S. travel to Russia has been terminated. That's indefinitely. We can't get an invitation, and I don't think I would go under the circumstances, even if I could get in, because it's just so dangerous. The Russian cities along the southern border of Russia with Ukraine, that's where all the trouble has been. Go back to 2014, that's when Russia went through the eastern part of Ukraine and took over Crimea, which actually Russia claimed was theirs in the first place, because they have a gigantic Navy base on that island. And he being Putin, wanted that under his control, so he took the eastern corner of Ukraine so he would have access to it. And that's the Donetsk area is what we're talking about, and that's where the fighting's been going on since 14, and it's still going on. Putin's army just can't seem to be able to take it and hold it. I heard just the other day that Russia lost over 1,000 soldiers in one day last week. And that's some of our generals that you hear on the news commentary are talking about. They've just about spent all they have as far as military equipment and so forth. The tanks that are being destroyed by the Ukrainians, it's just unbelievable. We don't know what China or Iran or North Korea is going to do for them, but those are the ones that Russia's turning to. It was interesting that during the summer months there, these big heavy tanks and heavy equipment get stuck in the mud because they're so heavy and it's so wet in that area. But in the wintertime, the ground freezes, and boy, it's just like an open season, just like a highway. You can even cross rivers because they're frozen solid. So they have easy access just about everywhere when the ground's frozen. Their media is censored. Email is still used, but sparingly. They have a new app called Telegram, and that's the one they prefer. They tell me that that's less likely to be policed by the authorities that are looking for suspicious activity. So that's kind of a private app that they can use with us if you so desire. I use that with several of them. Product availability from Europe was their main source. I'm talking about foodstuffs. Every time you went in a supermarket or a grocery store there, you'd see merchandise from Europe, some of the countries in Europe. But that's beginning to slow down and be cut off, and that was the desire that the government officials placed on Russia with those restrictions. They started cutting off whatever we could, or they could, to put pressure on them. It's interesting that the surrounding countries that border Russia are saving dollars. I find that not surprising because, you know, our currency is known worldwide as the go-to. When Biden and Putin too, for that matter, stopped U.S. dollars going into Russia, the SWIFT system, that's the international system where money is transferred from one place to another. Well, Biden shut that down from U.S. going into Russia. I was able early to send some extra funds over there to our bank, from my bank to that bank in Syktyvkar, and that helped through just about all of last year. And as time went by, it just kept getting less and less, and finally my bank said, we can't do it anymore. So I had to turn to some other people that live outside Russia that knew what was going on. I know a couple that, dear friends and Christians, that moved from Russia to Cyprus. And they do business internationally with their company. And they have a bank that they work with in Cyprus, and they have an account with a bank in Moscow where their accounts receivable are paid. So what we worked out with them was I would send them dollars into Cyprus, and he in turn would take rubles, the quantity, the equal amount of rubles, and from Moscow to Syktyvkar. So that was, I didn't send any dollars, which would have, you know, violated something, but I guess you'd say I did it in the back door anyway. But it's worked very well. He's got friends that have helped, and we've been able to maintain that all of the remainder of last year and the first part of this year. So we're doing very well with that, and that's why they want to keep their dollars. I asked one of the friends of his, I said, how much are you going to charge a fee? And he said, no, I just want dollars in my bank account. I'll do what I do for you free. So that was special. The support, as I say, the support's coming from the neighboring countries. Oil, of course, is daily topic in news media, and the supply, it always goes up and down. But worldwide, there's a lot of pressure on it. Russia feels that. They make money when it's $80 or above. They lose money at below 80, and they try to keep it up there. But obviously, in the last 10 days, it's come down well under 70. So he's, they're putting a hurt on him that way too, because Europe is cutting back on what they get from Russia, which makes the supply better. With that, before I get into the work itself, if you've got any questions, I'll try to answer them for you. If you've got something that you've seen here that's interesting, or if you've got some questions that you've had in your mind for a long time. Yes, sir.
How do the Russian people, the community in itself, how does the Russian people feel concerning this conflict between Ukraine and Russia at this time? I hear things that they're not very supportive of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. My sense is that most are not in favor of this. As you know, Ukraine used to be a part of Russia for, historically. Then in the early 90s, when all these bordering countries broke away, they left Russia standing as an isolated country. And Putin has appealed to all the people that are in Russia on the basis of let's reunite old Russia. He wants to rebuild the old Soviet Union that we all grew up with. And most people don't like that. I knew early in the 90s that after they got a taste of capitalism, that, boy, the young people didn't want to have anything to do with communism again, because this is just so much better for them. So the young people realize that. I know of a few Christians who are still old Russian, and they have a tendency to think, well, maybe he's not all wrong. But for the most part, I think they're ready, as you say, to let this pass. I think I saw a picture, 1991, Red Square. You've all heard of Red Square. That is a massive open space just out in front of the Kremlin. And this square that I'm telling you about is bigger than that. It's the biggest square I've ever seen. And the 1991, there was a picture there of that place was just jam-packed with people, shoulder to shoulder, just as far as you could see in that picture. And that was the thing that broke down Mikhail Gorbachev. And yes, sir.
Got a question about, a couple of questions. The orphanages they got, you know, the girls and the guy and the young men separated and everything. What's going on with those? I know that when they would turn a certain age, they would turn them out, so to speak. And also, how is the church excel as far as the church going there in Russia now as compared pre-COVID?
I'll start with the orphans. That's what you were talking about, the orphans?
Yeah.
Yeah. The orphanages are historically, I won't even go so far as to say caregivers. They are just a storage place, if you'll forgive the term. They just keep the children until if they get of age, and then they send them out. Most of the time, they just look for that opportunity to get rid of them because they got so many more coming in. But at 16 to 18, we have some in our homes that have been raised in Christian homes, foster homes, and they are, let's see, they enjoy living there, and if they're good students and they're making good grades, they want to continue to go to school, then we've always let them stay as long as they wanted to. And but when, you know, if they ever wanted to leave themselves, we didn't stop them. But that's because of the church and the Christians that operate these homes. Did I hear your question right? Is that kind of what you? All right. But the orphanages they're still very, very effective with what they do. They're just not compassionate. Yes, sir.
You said that, like, back in 2014 is when some of this fighting has started.
Yes.
And it kind of seems like it's continued to the present day.
Yes.
One of the things I think is where's the off-ramp, I guess? Where's the end of some of this? You know, how does it go back to some normalcy, I guess?
Yeah.
I know that's a big question.
Well, I think the main thing we have to remember in your question is that Putin is an extremely proud old Russian. By old Russian, I'm saying he came up under Stalin. Stalin taught him everything he knows, and he was in FSB would be the aftermath of, I forgot what their first. Who was? Yeah, okay. He's always been a part of that mentality, and he is proud to the point that they don't really expect him to quit. He may be forced out, which is, that's why I use that reference to 1991 and the crowd. That would bring him down, but it's going to have to come from within, I think, because as long as he's got men, and he'll keep raising the draft age as much as he has to take care of that. But some of the mothers, they keep talking about the mothers in Russia are beginning to rise up because their boys are leaving and they're not coming back. And they don't see any sense in that.
How about the church? How's the church doing over there now?
The church is very helpful, especially to Ukrainians that are escaping or coming out of Ukraine. We've even had, I think there's been 5 families that have stayed with us in Syktyvkar. That escaped that far up, and we're like 1,700 miles from the border. But they come that far to get away. But the church in Syktyvkar is still strong, It's still operating. They have, they don't have many expenses. The church building itself is paid for since 2009. And so their building is good. It's a nice building. You've seen pictures of it, I have showed you. But they're strong. There's a church down in Rostov on Don, which is right on the border. And a lot of those refugees come through that church. And that's how we wind up with some of them in Syktyvkar. There's a lot of them going from Ukraine into Poland. And there's some Christians that have gotten together and rented a dormitory, $7,000 a month. And they've been doing this for a year, supporting several women and children in there. One of these days they're going to want to go back if the war is over. So it's fascinating to watch Christians as they've kind of risen to the top as far as taking care of people. It's okay. Let's go through and see what we can find out about what's going on as far as our work's concerned. Okay, come on. Remember this one, John 4:35. The fields are white unto harvest. That's what I think Paul, whether he was looking for it or not, but that's what was in front of him. This was just a picture I had that impressed me because of the vastness of it. I read about cotton in Florida. Most of your cotton is grown in the Panhandle. Mississippi it's either cotton or soybeans. You can go from town to country and there's either cotton or soybeans just on either side of the road. But in the past, it's always been cotton. And these fields represent to me the fields that are white unto harvest. They're out there, and it's our job to go find them and take them the gospel. And that's basically what we're trying to do with the Russian Social Assistance Homes. If you remember, we started, those of you that I guess they've been with me from the beginning, that we started off with the Russian Homes for Widows and Orphans, and we wanted an orphanage of our own, but the government wouldn't let us have that, and we kept banging our head into the wall trying to set that up, but it just wasn't going to happen. And a lady in Memphis who at the time was doing foster care, and she said, well, go back and talk to them about foster homes. So I did, and boy, the light came on, and how many do you want? So we were able to get several of them just right off the bat. But today that process has gotten a lot more strict. But we were blessed to have some good ones in the beginning, and some of those stories are just wonderful and fascinating. I feel sure I've mentioned to them before. But now today we're in 5 cities. The one in Moscow is actually in Zhukovsky, which is a suburb, 100,000 people. We've got an apartment there that we bought, and it serves as both an apartment and office, and we rent one to house a couple of ladies and their children. Vologda, which is about an 8-hour train ride north of Moscow, we've been there for many years working with an orphanage. The preacher there graduated from our preacher training school, which was in Syktyvkar, and he went down there in '97 and began working with them, and we were able to get into the orphanages, and from that time on, he's always been able or had access to this one particular one, and we send him support, $100 a month, to buy materials that he can go and have these sessions with these young people. And so they've let us, and that's unusual. The Russian Orthodox Church you would think would have access, but they do not. Coatless, we've got 2 foster families there. One of them is our largest. Syktyvkar, we've got is our home base, and then the one further north, Sosnogorsk, and then the sister city is Ukhta. And at Ukhta is where the road stops. You can't drive any further north than that one. You have to ride the train or fly. But there's one city above that called Vorkuta, and that was a city that had several hundred, well, about 300,000 people during the World War II. And that's where Stalin got all of his coal and his salt. They mined both of those from that area. And after the war, well, that all kind of let up, and the city has dwindled down to less than 50,000 now. So it was vital to Stalin during the war. But those are our 5 cities, and we've been there now since 2001, when we started the first one in Syktyvkar. Go therefore and teach, baptize and teach. And I'm embarrassed to say that when we first started going, we were like missionaries. We were inexperienced at that at the time. That was 93 when I went. And we were interested in numbers. You know what I'm talking about? How many did you baptize? Oh, we did this, this, and this. And the question should have been, after you baptize them, what were your classes like? And we fell down on that. And so initially we had a lot of Christians, but that's all they were. They're just like sitting in a pew. But that has changed over the years a little bit. It's gradually getting better. And the homes themselves, when these destitute women and children and foster children come into our program, then they are all taught the Bible. And when we get to the end of this, what time did I have to quit? 10:20. Oh, good. Okay. But we have to remember that. Well, I forgot now what I was going to do. I'll come back. I told somebody the other day that was younger than me that had forgotten something. I said, it doesn't get any easier. Maybe it'll come back as further along I go. But that's what we're supposed to do. That's our mission, is to go teach. James 1:27. This is the vehicle we use. Pure and undefiled religion before God the Father is to visit the fatherless and the widows and their troubles and keep ourselves unspotted from the world. And we have chosen that to build our homes on. The widows and the orphans, the women and children in need. And when we first started, and it's still, I'm sure today, there were just numerous people, women and children, on the street. Even the children you had to beware of large gatherings of them, because they would just strip you bare right there on the street. And I mean literally. They were vicious. So we had to be very careful, but there was a lot of them. There was even one child that was found in a manhole. It was warm there at night, and that's where he lived during the nighttime. So they're just heartbreaking stories, one after another. And that's the people the ones we were looking for. Abused women, they would come to us, and depending on their circumstances, then we would accept them and help them. And a lot of them didn't even have registration, so that's part of what we offer for them. Provide food and shelter, clothing, and even medical help. Christian homes for orphans through foster care. We've talked about that. Provide help to orphanage through the local church. Reach those needing help. This is something new. We've been going now for a little over a year. We found that there were a lot of women that had a place to live, but they didn't have any physical necessities like food, groceries for their kids, clothes for their kids. So we began advertising, especially in the north, in Sosnogorsk, that we would help them. And that has grown. Last year we baptized 3 ladies as a result of that work, where you offer them this help, even though they've got a place to live. But once we start, another illustration, if you start just within your neighborhood, going next door to each house and doing something nice for them, maybe once a week, maybe 2 or 3 days. Eventually, they'll probably ask you, why are you doing this? Well, that's your door. And that's what's happened for us numerous times. Why do you do this? And that's like I say, that's how we get into their heart. We provide daily, weekly, and individual Bible study. This is a prerequisite. This is required for all of us. It's not that we have the legal right to require anyone who comes to live with us. It's a voluntary situation. We cannot require them to, but the encouragement is pretty strong, and it works. We can get, it has developed that this Monday night Bible class for the ladies is one of their highlights of the week. This is where they fellowship with each other. You know, if, let's say you've got 8 or 10 ladies that are all similar circumstances, and you scatter them in this crowd, then it's not as effective as if they all 8 or 10 of them were in a room studying the Bible together. They all similar needs. So that has proven to be very effective. Okay. Bible classes for ladies. The 10 devotionals are always on Saturday. For the younger kids, they have quarterly, they call them events on Saturday for children. And they all come together, and it's usually some kind of something about Israel. A day in the life of an Israelite. And that's what they study. They look at the food and the activity, the crafts, and that's usually on Saturdays once a quarter. We hope to resume our summer camps this year. Looking a little doubtful right now, but we'll just keep working on that. Volek, the orphanages, I mentioned that as well. This is church, the workers in the church in Volek. Nick is the preacher. He's been there since '97, and the first man baptized in the church in 1995 is sitting over his right shoulder. That's Volodya, and then his wife followed, and this is that. You know, they're very special. They've been very dedicated to the work, and they have grown, but they lose. It's kind of like a city where there's a lot of people transfer in and transfer out. Well, that's what happened at Volek. That's one of the main cities for the railroad, and that travels from Moscow north. And so that's been a problem for them. These are some of the activities that we were just talking about. Have VBS summer camp, and that one on the bottom is they built a raft, and they floated down the river there for 4 nights and 5 days, and they studied about Noah. Wow. They had a great time. And if you see the one on the right, there's a camel there. There's 2 camels right outside Sixtieth Car, and the guy keeps them there for activity. He'll bring them into town on Saturday, and I've been there in the wintertime, and he brings them both in, and the kids get to ride that camel around the square in the city. It's really hairy. You wouldn't believe how hairy those things are. I wouldn't want to be around when they start shedding. This is the Saturday quarterly thing for the children. And there's just that open certainly to the church children. And that's one of the elders at the far end of the table. And this is Tanya Popkova with her hand up over here on the right. And she's the director of the foster homes. So they're fascinating young people, and the parents are really working at it to keep them faithful. This is that Monday night group. There's 5 ladies in that picture that at the time had not been converted. The one in the black T-shirt on the front row there was the last Sunday in January she was converted. So there's still 4, and they have these Bible studies, and sometimes they'll want to study it by themselves with them. So those are most meaningful. the lady standing on the far right is Lena. She's a physician, doctor, and she has helped us with the alternative to abortion program that we have. And she's been very, very effective, especially getting our program introduced into the hospitals and women's clinics. And we've saved 5 children as a matter of offering this possibility. We're thankful for that. These ladies are they're grandmothers, of course, and if young people will just stand back and listen to the older ladies, ask them questions, and they can, it's just an infinite amount of wisdom and judgment that's available. All you got to do is ask, and they'll be glad to share with you, even to the point of, okay, that's enough, you know. But they are very, very special and sweet. The lady in the upper right is our director of the social assistance homes. And the other 3 ladies, they live in the apartments, and depending on a need, like if a young lady moves in, she's got a child, maybe 2, and she needs help, then one of those ladies will move into the other room in her apartment. And they'll stay there with her until they can help her, see her through whatever it is. A lot of them don't even know how to shop. And they can take them and show them, and they're very frugal, having been through what they have been through. They don't waste they don't waste money at all. Pardon me. But they are very special. Okay, there we go. One back up. This was the lady I was telling you about in the black T-shirt. She was baptized in January of 2023, just past couple of weeks ago, about a month ago. All right, this one didn't show up good. Sorry. Okay, we've got our budget. You can see the little bitty print. I don't know if you can see that, but the annual budget is $137,500. That's a monthly total of $11,400. Administrative expense is $2,400. That's about, what, 20% of that? So it's, I don't know if I can see what, Moscow, thank you, sorry about this. The Moscow and Zhukovsky is $2,800 a month, and Sosnogorsk is $1,100 a month. And that's kind of strange because Sosnogorsk is where we have to buy those extra groceries. And they've been kind of see the difference in the expense of living in Moscow versus outside of Moscow. So that has been very revealing as far as expenses are concerned. But the income for the work, monthly income, which is, you're a part of that, that totals just shy of $10,000 a month. And you think, we're about $1,500 a month short. But periodically during the year, we get special contributions from somebody's trust fund or something that they, Fidelity has a charitable division in their investment portfolios, and people take advantage of that. Well, they'll send extra dividends or whatever. And it comes, last year, we were a little bit over that. So it works out. God has blessed us generously. And that's just the way it is. And I'm thankful for it. God will provide. This is a list of the, I know you can't read them all, but you're on there. And it's, these are the list of 17 congregations and 30 individuals that have helped us last year. To date, we've established a total of 15 homes, 9 social assistance homes, and 6 foster homes. We own 13 apartments, and that was due to some good advice we got in the early days in the 93, 95 that, when communism fell, their economy just tanked. It went to nothing. I got 3 minutes. And so after they began to settle back down, we started this in 2001. Well, at that time, the real estate was just very inexpensive, and we were able to buy about 6 apartments in a $20,000 range apiece over time. But that has been very, very beneficial. The only thing that costs us now is an escrow that we pay into monthly for repairs, and so that has helped tremendously to have those apartments. And we got one house that we built, and then we rent one. The houses, social assistance homes, where the 22 women and 14 children. Then we've also helped 516 women and children that have passed through the homes. Foster homes provide for 33 adults and children, 10 and 23. 45 have graduated. That was what you were talking about earlier, what happens. We've had some really wonderful kids. We've had some problem kids as well, but the good ones far outshine what problems we've had. One of them is the wife of the director of the Bible school there. And one of the others is a preacher in a congregation that they started a satellite congregation outside Sicticor. To date, well, we've got 9 employees, 5 full-time, 4 part-time. And let's see, to date, 640 lives been affected, budget 11.5. That 640, every one of them has heard the Bible taught. And we've had the good result, I guess, good results. About 18%, 98 have been baptized. We really would like to get up to the 25% where the parable was. You know, the 25% fell on the good ground. But it's maybe this year. We've also got the bottom one there is mentions the doctor that we have on staff. Okay, that's the last one. Okay. Got 1 minute. Anybody got one more question? No? Thank you very much again for your support, your love, and your kindness. And when we come visit, you're just special people. Thank you. Love you. There it is.